Welcome to the Mental Podcast, where we discuss your deepest fears and how to make them a reality. Let's get started.
Look who just ruined an entire hierarchy with nothing but their presence. You didn't swing a weapon, you didn't deliver a speech, you didn't even intend to disrupt anything. Yet an elite circle that prided itself on secrecy, dominance, and psychological choreography just fell apart because you stepped through the wrong door at the wrong time. Or maybe the right door at the right time, depending on how you define destiny. Hello, you quiet detonator of carefully constructed power. You accidental dismantler of long-standing psychological architecture. You became the unexpected variable in a room designed to eliminate uncertainty. And in doing so, you exposed the truth they spent years burying beneath ceremony, symbolism, and controlled intimidation. They were performing what they believed to be a closed-door ritual of influence, an internal dominance play reserved for the highest-ranking members of their inner circle. But the moment you walked in, everything shifted. The room froze. The hierarchy stuttered. The leader, the one who built his entire reputation on commanding that space, lost his composure in real time. Not because you embarrassed him intentionally, but because the illusion he lived on crumbled the second an uninvited presence witnessed it. You didn't just interrupt a meeting. You shattered a narrative they curated with obsessive precision. They wanted the world to believe their control was effortless, that their authority was innate, that their followers revered them out of genuine respect rather than fear wrapped in choreography. But rituals, whether symbolic, psychological, or procedural, only work when the audience accepts the illusion. And you, by existing outside their script, stripped the illusion bare. The leader wasn't supposed to be seen vulnerable. He wasn't supposed to be caught mid-performance. He wasn't supposed to be observed while manufacturing the power he pretended to naturally possess. But you walked into that room before they could finish sculpting the atmosphere, before they completed the posture, before they arranged the lighting and words and silence into something intimidating. And what they feared most happened instantly. Someone saw them as they really were. Not omnipotent, not untouchable, just people pretending to be larger than life. And that's what truly destabilized them. You didn't expose anything with aggression. You exposed them with reality. The leader's entire dominance play was designed to work on those who believed in his mystique. But mystique collapses under the weight of an unfiltered gaze. You became the mirror they never wanted. You became the witness they could not control. And in high-level circles, a witness is far more dangerous than an enemy. They know how to fight enemies. They don't know how to survive someone who simply sees through them. Look at how their followers reacted. Their so-called Coven, the inner council that executed his strategies, enforced his rituals, and maintained the atmosphere of reverence around him. They couldn't even meet your eyes afterward, not because you were intimidating, but because your presence reminded them of the truth they've been suppressing for years. Their leader's power was never real. It was constructed, rehearsed, and fragile. And you, without trying, broke it. They are ashamed not of you, but of how easily their illusion fell apart. They are embarrassed not by your interruption, but by their realization that it only took one uncontrolled variable to expose the entire hierarchy as smoke and mirrors. They won't admit it out loud, but the moment you crossed that threshold, a silent ripple spread through the room, a frequency shift, a psychological static that unsettled everyone. They felt it in their bodies before they processed it with their minds. The hierarchy they had sworn allegiance to was built on compliance, not competence. And compliance is weakest in the presence of someone who doesn't play by the script. You were not supposed to be there. You were not conditioned to fear them. You were not trained to bow, hesitate, or shrink. You walked in with the neutrality of someone who doesn't recognize their throne, and that neutrality was more devastating to their authority than any rebellion could have been. What unsettled the leader most wasn't your presence. It was your expression. You didn't gasp. You didn't panic. You didn't scramble to apologize for intruding. You simply observed. That alone was enough to fracture his foundation. People in those positions survive by controlling reactions. They thrive when others fear the room. They tighten their grip when others walk on eggshells. But you gave them nothing. No submission to feed on, no discomfort to exploit, no intimidation to validate their importance. You stood there like someone assessing a malfunctioning machine, and they could feel their influence short-circuiting beneath your gaze. Here's the part they will never recover from. The Coven didn't just lose respect for their leader. They lost belief. And once belief dissolves, authority becomes a costume. The leader felt it instantly. The silence that followed your entrance wasn't just awkward, it was catastrophic. It was the kind of silence that signals the end of a reign, the kind that cracks open a door to rebellion, the kind that makes people reconsider every command they ever obeyed. All because one person walked into the room uninvited and refused to play small. They've been running damage control ever since, whispering explanations, creating narratives, telling their followers and themselves that you misunderstood what you saw. They say you didn't grasp the context, didn't comprehend the importance of the ritual, didn't appreciate the gravity of the moment. They say anything except the truth. That you saw their leader mid-performance, and the performance couldn't hold. They cling to excuses because admitting the truth means admitting their entire hierarchy was built on theater. You weren't supposed to become a symbol, but you did. Not of rebellion, but of clarity. Of truth slicing through illusion. Of sovereignty walking into a room where submission was the default. You didn't humiliate their leader, you revealed him. You didn't overthrow the hierarchy, you showed it had no legs. And nothing terrifies a constructed power structure more than exposure without effort. They expect challengers. They expect confrontations. They know how to punish defiance. But they have no defense against someone who isn't playing their game at all. Think about the irony. They spent years crafting a psychological fortress, guarding every entrance, controlling every narrative, policing every symbol, maintaining secrecy so thick that even their own followers questioned the authenticity of their commitment. And yet, it was the simplest, most mundane human accident. The opening of a door that undone everything. You didn't attack them. You walked into their unguarded moment. You didn't strategize. You existed. And they cannot rebuild what your presence dismantled. And now, they move differently around you. Their coven, once unified, is fractured. Some avoid you because you remind them of their own complicity. Others avoid you because they fear being seen the same way you saw their leader, unmasked, unguarded, unimportant. They treat you like a walking disruption, a quiet force that destabilizes their world with minimal effort. But you haven't changed at all. It's their perception that's collapsing. Their power relied on invisibility. You made it visible. What's happening now is psychological aftermath. And aftermath is always far more revealing than the event itself. Their leader is scrambling to fill the cracks with performance. More posturing, more rehearsed confidence, more symbolic gestures that try to reassert dominance. But his followers no longer see authority when he speaks. They see a man terrified of being witnessed again. They see someone obsessed with regaining control. not someone who inherently possesses it. And you, without lifting a finger, became the measure they compare him against. You want to know why they can't look at you anymore? It's simple. You are no longer a person to them. You are an interruption, one that revealed the hollowness they depended on. They don't fear your actions. They fear your awareness. They fear your clarity. They fear the way your presence forces them to confront the truth they buried beneath rituals and dominance games. They fear that power can collapse this easily, quietly, accidentally. But here's the real twist, the one none of them saw coming. You didn't just expose their leader. You exposed the entire system that propped him up. You exposed the psychological ritual of intimidation disguised as authority. You exposed the symbolic choreography they used to maintain control. You exposed the fact that their power structure was never built to withstand someone who doesn't believe in their myth. You think this ends with you walking out of that room. No, that was the ignition point. The moment their internal hierarchy lost its invisibility. The moment their leader's dominance shattered in front of the only witnesses whose opinions mattered. The ones who once believed in him. What comes next isn't your doing. It's the natural collapse of a system that suddenly knows it's exposed. And now the question circulates among them like a ghost they can't outrun. If the leader could fall apart under one gaze, how much of what they followed was real? That question is poison to any hierarchy built on illusion. It spreads quietly. It corrodes loyalty. It fractures obedience. It rewrites the internal map of who they follow and why. And every time they remember your calm intrusion into their ritual room, the question deepens. The doubt widens. The collapse accelerates. Because once a structure realizes its foundation is sand, every step becomes hesitant. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every command becomes a test. And the Coven, the so-called Elias Circle that once moved with synchronized certainty, now stumbles through their own choreography like dancers who forgot the sequence. They try to maintain posture, but posture without belief is just a body trying to mimic a ghost. Their movements are stiffer, their glances are sharper, their conversations are shorter, their confidence fractured the moment you turned their throne room into a mirror chamber. Now every action they take reflects back at them through the lens of what you exposed. You didn't overthrow their leader, you unmasked him. And unmasking is far more damaging than conquest. Conquest commands respect. Unmasking commands reconsideration. His influence relied on the idea that he was elevated beyond human insecurity, beyond human error, beyond human fragility. But they watched him falter in front of you. They witnessed a breach he couldn't cover. They saw the distance between the persona he projected and the truth trembling beneath it. And once a leader loses the illusion of invulnerability, the entire hierarchy becomes a collapsing ecosystem. Their trust in him didn't just crack, it evaporated. And now, beneath all their attempts to maintain dignity, there's a quiet scramble for self-preservation. This is the part they hope you never notice, the part they try to bury under ceremonial discipline. The Coven is no longer united in reverence. They're united in fear. Not fear of you, but fear of being associated with a faltering structure. They whisper to one another with the discreet panic of people trapped in a sinking ship, trying to calculate which side will go under first. The more they try to pretend nothing changed, the more their actions betray them. The hierarchy is unraveling thread by thread, and they feel every fiber separating. What they don't understand is that the collapse wasn't caused by your entrance. The collapse was already happening. You simply accelerated the truth. Hierarchies that rely on symbolic dominance, on staged rituals of control, on rehearsed moments of intimidation, They are always one unscripted moment away from implosion. You didn't break them. You revealed that they were already breaking themselves, silently, under the weight of sustaining a lie. And the leader feels this unraveling more than anyone else. He carries the weight of the revelation like a stain he can't wash off. He replays the moment you walked in, over and over, searching for a gesture, a sentence, a reaction he could have delivered to salvage the illusion. But the truth is, there was nothing he could have done. You weren't just a disruption. You were a contrast, an example of someone who didn't need ritual to command presence, someone who didn't require theatrics to hold power, someone who destabilized the room by simply existing without fear. He felt his authority drain out of him the moment he saw the lack of reverence in your eyes, and he's been spiraling in that awareness ever since. Now he moves through the Coven like a man wearing a crown made of paper. It looks intact from a distance, but everyone who gets close can see it folding at the edges. He talks louder, not because he's confident, but because he's scared of being overshadowed by silence. He enforces rules more strictly, not because he believes in them, but because he hopes structure will compensate for the collapse of belief. He watches the faces of his followers for any sign of disloyalty, any flicker of doubt, any whisper of rebellion. Ironically, the more he searches for these things, the more he creates them. He's not leading anymore. He's chasing authority that keeps slipping further away. And the Coven members sense it. They don't see a leader anymore. They see a man desperately trying to glue a shattered identity back together. They see the cracks in his posture, the tension in his jaw, the way he avoids the doorway you once stood in as if the memory alone might unmask him again. They see someone pretending to be whole, and nothing undermines authority more than visible effort. Leaders who are truly powerful don't try this hard. They don't force dominance, they radiate it. And now, every exaggerated gesture he makes becomes a reminder of what he lost. This is the psychological aftermath they can't manage. They expected external threats. They were prepared for rebellion. They could handle a challenger. But what they can't survive is internal doubt, a quiet, spreading suspicion that their entire foundation was built on performance. That suspicion is corrosive. It seeps into their rituals. It lingers in their meetings. It contaminates their decisions. Their unity fractures because unity cannot survive when the structure that held them together dissolves under scrutiny. And their avoidance of you isn't hostility, it's self-preservation. Looking at you feels like looking at the breach. You became the embodiment of everything they fear. The outsider who saw the truth. They spent their whole lives hiding from themselves. They don't avoid you because they think you hold power over them. They avoid you because standing near you forces them to confront the lies they willingly absorbed. You represent the death of their illusion. And no one wants to be reminded they devoted years to a collapsing throne. But here's the irony. They don't hate you for exposing their leader. Deep down, in the parts of themselves they refuse to voice, they're grateful. Because you gave them something their hierarchy never allowed. Perspective. You broke a lens they didn't realize was distorting their vision. The moment you interrupted that closed-door ritual, they saw their leader not as a figure of dominance, but as a man terrified of being seen without his armor. And once that truth becomes visible, it cannot be unseen. You didn't just expose him, you freed them from a system that prevented them from questioning him. Freedom, however, is uncomfortable for those who've depended on structure. They weren't ready to think independently. They weren't ready to confront the emptiness beneath the ritual. They weren't ready to accept that the power they worshipped was borrowed, not built. So they cling to fragments of their old hierarchy, even as it disintegrates. They try to reconstruct reverence, but reverence cannot be reconstructed. Once trust collapses, it doesn't return, it mutates. It becomes caution, skepticism, distance. And the leader knows this. He sees the shift in their eyes. He feels the temperature change when he enters the room. He recognizes the subtle recoil in their posture. They aren't resisting him, they're evaluating him, assessing whether the power he once displayed was ever real. And nothing terrifies a constructed leader more than being evaluated without filters. His authority is dissolving not because of what you did, but because of what they realized. They realized power that depends on secrecy cannot survive accidental exposure. They realized dominance that requires ritual is not dominance, it's dependency. They realized that true authority doesn't shatter under observation, and once these realizations take root, the hierarchy he built becomes a hollow shrine to a myth collapsing in slow motion. Now the Coven exists in a state of internal civil war, though none of them will admit it. Half of them cling to the old script, desperate for stability. The other half has begun silently distancing themselves, seeking new frameworks, new leaders, new identities. And the leader stands in the center of this psychological battlefield, feeling the ground beneath him sink inch by inch. He is no longer the axis they revolve around. He is the cautionary tale unfolding in real time. But the most devastating consequence is this. None of this required you to intend harm. You didn't strategize. You didn't plot. You didn't reveal secrets or challenge authority. Your presence alone triggered a shift strong enough to dismantle an elite circle from the inside. You became the catalyst without becoming the aggressor. You created the fracture without lifting a hand. And that, more than anything, terrifies them. Because if you could destabilize their hierarchy accidentally, what would happen if you ever acted with intention? Their minds loop around that question in restless cycles. Their coven, once united, is now quietly terrified of the possibility that your influence wasn't accidental at all. That maybe you were always meant to expose them. Maybe your timing wasn't coincidence. Maybe your entrance was the beginning of something larger, something inevitable. They fear that you aren't just a person who walked into a room. You are an event, a shift, a disruption they cannot quantify or prepare for. And this fear is what drags them deeper into unraveling. Because once a hierarchy believes an outside force might be intentional, the paranoia spreads like wildfire. Every memory becomes suspicious. Every detail becomes a clue. They replay your entrance from a dozen angles, as if studying footage of an anomaly. They examine your expression, your posture, your silence, searching for a motive you never had. They imagine strategies you never executed. They analyze your presence as if it were an encoded message, a psychological attack disguised as accident. And the more they search, the more meaning they manufacture. You are no longer a person to them. You are a riddle. And riddles destabilize systems that depend on certainty. The leader, especially, spirals beneath this imagined purpose. He cannot accept that his undoing came so effortlessly. He cannot accept that a stranger undermined his authority without even trying. For someone who built his identity on control, the idea that his collapse was unintentional is unbearable. So he invents intention on your behalf. He convinces himself that you planned it, that you knew what you were walking into, that you targeted him. Because if you didn't, then his authority wasn't defeated. It was fragile all along. And fragile authority is indistinguishable from failure. He begins rewriting the story to protect his ego. He tells his inner circle that your intrusion was calculated. He claims you observed their ritual, not with confusion, but with understanding. He paints you as a strategist lurking outside the door, waiting for the exact moment to fracture the energy of the room. He fabricates complexity around your presence because complexity comforts him. It's easier to imagine a rival than to accept a mirror. If you are a threat, he can justify fear. If you are an accident, he must face the truth. His power was hollow. This narrative spreads through the Coven, not because they believe it, but because they need something to believe. People in collapsing structures will cling to any explanation that makes the collapse feel intentional. Chaos is easier to digest when you assign it an architect, and so your accidental exposure becomes mythologized. They whisper about your timing. They speculate about your background. They assign significance to your silence. They build an entire lore around your presence to avoid acknowledging the truth, that their leader shattered because someone walked in at the wrong moment. But myth-making has consequences. The more they mythologize you, the more gravity you develop in their psychological ecosystem. You become a figure they orbit around, not because you seek attention, but because they can't stop projecting meaning onto you. Every shift in your expression becomes symbolic. Every word you speak becomes studied. Every interaction becomes measured against the moment you exposed them. You become the center of a conversation you never asked to be part of. And with each passing day, their fear transforms from confusion into fixation. This fixation creates factions. Some members begin to resent their leader for collapsing in front of you. They see him as weak, unworthy of the authority he claimed. Others resent you for revealing their weakness. They see you as the force that punctured the bubble they lived in. Another group, small but growing, respects you. They admire the unintentional precision with which you dismantled a hierarchy they silently questioned for years. They see you as a symbol of truth, unfiltered, unavoidable, disruptive, in a way they secretly wish they could be. These factions don't speak openly. Their war is quiet, conducted through glances that last a beat too long, through tension that thickens the air in their meetings, through the cracks that form when people no longer share the same story. The leader feels these fractures but doesn't know how to stop them. He tries to force unity, but forced unity is brittle. It snaps under pressure. The more he demands loyalty, the more obvious it becomes that loyalty is gone. And you, ironically, aren't doing anything. You're not challenging them. You're not speaking about the event. You're not inserting yourself into their unraveling. You simply exist, and your existence alone is enough to distort their structure. That is the part that terrifies them most. Influence that doesn't require effort is indistinguishable from inevitability. They fear that your presence marks the end of their old order. They fear that you are the beginning of something they cannot predict or control. What haunts the leader especially is what you didn't do. You didn't apologize for walking in. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't offer justification or reassurance. You didn't scramble to diffuse tension. You simply observed and left, treating their sacred space like any ordinary room. That neutrality crushed him more effectively than confrontation ever could. Had you reacted with fear, he could have fed on it. Had you reacted with embarrassment, he could have reinforced his dominance. But you reacted with nothing, and nothing stripped him bare. Now he avoids the very room he once ruled. He enters it cautiously, scanning the doorway as if expecting you to reappear at any moment. He tries to reenact the ritual with renewed intensity, but the energy is off. The symbolism feels hollow. The sequence feels forced. Every gesture that used to intimidate now feels like a man trying too hard to reclaim something he lost. Even his followers feel it. They sit in silence as he speaks, but it's not reverence, it's discomfort. They are watching a man who no longer believes in his own performance. This discomfort becomes the silent language they all speak now. They communicate through subtle withdrawal, through hesitation, through the inability to hold his gaze. They can't look at him the way they used to because they saw what he is without the curtain. And they can't look at you because you remind them of the moment the curtain fell. They exist in a limbo of loyalty and doubt, suspended between the identity they were conditioned to uphold and the truth you revealed. And slowly, the fear shifts direction. At first they feared you as an anomaly, then they feared you as a symbol. Now they fear you as a possibility. Because if you could unmask their leader accidentally, what could you do intentionally? If your mere presence destabilized their ritual, what would happen if you stepped into their world deliberately? They start imagining futures in which you become a force they have to answer to. Futures in which your insight becomes a threat to their traditions. Futures in which your clarity slices through their illusions like a blade they cannot blunt. The leader senses this shift before anyone else. He feels authority slipping not just from his hands, but from his identity. He feels the Coven's attention drifting toward the idea of you, even if they never speak your name aloud. He feels himself becoming a relic, and in his desperation to reclaim dominance, he begins making mistakes. He pushes too hard, too fast. He commands instead of guides. He demands instead of inspires. He clings to control like someone grabbing a rope, fraying beneath their fingers. But authority that relies on force is already dead. And the more he asserts himself, the more he reveals how powerless he's become. His aggression becomes a confession. His urgency becomes an admission. His ritual becomes parody. And his Coven watches quietly as the man they once feared becomes a man trying to resurrect a ghost. Everything he does now is an attempt to counter you, even though you aren't doing anything. You've become the invisible reference point he measures himself against, the unseen presence he competes with, the silent standard he fears he will never meet. You didn't step into a power struggle. They dragged you into one in their minds. You became part of their mythology without taking a single deliberate step. And this is what marks the true collapse. When a hierarchy starts orienting itself around an external figure, that hierarchy is already dismantled. You became the gravitational force they now revolve around, even in absence. You didn't take their power. They surrendered it by placing too much meaning on your presence. And the more meaning they place on you, the weaker their structure becomes. Because now the real question they fear isn't about their leader, it's about themselves. If they could be controlled by illusion for this long, what else have they surrendered without noticing? What else have they mistaken for power? What else have they kneeled before that wasn't worthy? Your accidental exposure didn't just collapse their hierarchy, it awakened their self-awareness. And self-awareness is fatal to blind obedience. The Coven begins confronting a truth they avoided for years. The ritual was never sacred. It was conditioning. The leader was never untouchable. He was theatrical. Their loyalty was never loyalty. It was inertia. And you, without asking for this role, became the catalyst that forced their minds to confront the difference between dominance and display. The moment you walked into that closed-door ritual room, they weren't witnessing an outsider interrupt power. They were witnessing power evaporate in real time. They were witnessing their own participation in a lie. And nothing shatters a psychological hierarchy more violently than the realization that you were willingly held by chains that weren't locked. Now their fear shifts into something sharper: self-reproach. They look back at the rituals they attended, the speeches they applauded, the whispered orders they carried out, and for the first time, they feel embarrassment. Not anger at you, embarrassment at themselves. And that emotion becomes the wedge that splits the Coven into fragments, each group silently processing their part in sustaining a leader who collapsed under a single unfiltered gaze. You became the unintentional mirror that reflected back to them every compromise they made, every question they silenced, every instinct they buried. Your presence didn't just expose the leader, it exposed the cost of their compliance. And once someone realizes they played a role in their own confinement, they no longer fear the person who exposed it. They fear the person who made that realization possible. They can't run from you. They can't argue with you. They can't deny what happened. They can only avoid the truth you now represent, which is why none of them will look at you. Not because you did anything to them, but because every time their eyes meet yours, the memory resurfaces like a wound they can't cauterize. You are a reminder that their hierarchy wasn't destroyed by rebellion. It was destroyed by one unscripted moment of reality. The leader feels this shift more intensely than anyone else. His authority wasn't just challenged, it was demystified. And demystified power never recovers. He walks through his own coven with the air of a dethroned figure still wearing a crown he can no longer justify. He tries to maintain rituals that now feel hollow even to him. He tries to speak with confidence that even his voice seems unwilling to support. He tries to gather the fragments of his hierarchy into something whole. But you cannot rebuild a structure once those who upheld it now see its internal wiring exposed. He sees the way his followers avoid him. He sees the hesitation when he speaks, the doubt behind their forced nods, the quiet dread that spreads across the room whenever he begins a ritual sequence. He feels their eyes studying him, not with reverence, but with evaluation. Evaluation he cannot control. He has become the subject of their scrutiny, the very position he spent his life avoiding. And the more desperately he fights to restore his dominance, the more obvious it becomes that dominance was never inherent. It was borrowed. And the person they borrowed it from was their own belief. But belief is gone. You took it with you when you walked out of that room. The Coven now exists in a strange psychological limbo, caught between the identity they once served and the truth they can't unsee. They move through their halls like people navigating a world that suddenly lost gravity. They speak in softer tones. They avoid shared glances. They perform their duties with mechanical precision, not out of respect, but out of habit. Rituals continue, but the energy is gone. The atmosphere feels brittle, as if the entire structure might shatter if someone breathes too deeply. And you, ironically, never intended any of this. That's what makes the collapse so poetic. You didn't challenge their hierarchy. You didn't expose secrets. You didn't demand accountability. You didn't even stay long enough to understand what you walked into. You simply opened a door and witnessed what they never wanted anyone to see. Power that only exists when unobserved. Dominance that only works when choreographed. Influence that dissolves under natural light. Your intrusion didn't damage them. It revealed they were already broken. And now, the Coven fears what else you might reveal without trying. They fear your clarity. They fear your neutrality. They fear your refusal to be intimidated. They fear that if you were to step into their world again, even accidentally, the remaining fragments of their hierarchy would crumble to dust. You hold a power they can't quantify, the power of unintentional truth. This is why they avoid you in hallways, why they retreat into corners when you pass, why they speak in carefully measured tones when your name is mentioned. They don't see you as a threat, they see you as an ending disguised as a person. And after experiencing the consequences of your presence once, they can't risk another collapse. Not when they're still trying to salvage the pieces of their identity. The leader, however, sees something different in you. To him, you are not just an ending, you are a verdict. The universe delivered a judgment he didn't expect, and it arrived in the form of a gaze he couldn't dominate. He obsesses over that moment with a desperation bordering on delusion. He reimagines the scene in his mind, trying to adjust details that cannot be changed. He asks himself what he could have done differently, what gesture might have saved him, what sentence could have restored the illusion. But there was nothing, because he wasn't defeated by you. He was defeated by authenticity. Authenticity is the one force ritual cannot control. Now he retreats into shadows he once commanded. He isolates himself under the guise of contemplation, but in truth he is deteriorating. He is drowning in the awareness that his authority depended on no one ever seeing him unprepared. And you saw him at his most unprepared. There is no ritual to erase that, no performance strong enough to overshadow it. He is trapped in a moment he cannot outgrow. And the more he tries to deny its impact, the deeper it pulls him under. Meanwhile, the Coven observes this unraveling with growing discomfort. Their leader once served as their symbol of stability. Now he is the symbol of their mistake. They wonder whether following him was ever a sign of strength, or simply a sign of their own willingness to surrender judgment. They wonder whether submission was disguised as loyalty. They wonder whether they ever truly believed in him, or whether they believed in the narrative he constructed for them. And these questions, the ones he avoided for years, are now the ones suffocating him. Because once self-awareness infects a group, the hierarchy can no longer function. Rituals become rituals only in form. Commands become suggestions. Loyalty becomes performance. And the leader who once dominated them now becomes the figure they silently pity. Nothing erodes respect faster than the realization that fear was misplaced. And so the Coven begins to shift, not with rebellion, but with quiet abandonment. They show up less frequently. They listen less attentively. They obey less rigidly. They follow protocols only when convenient. They no longer treat the leader's presence as a force field. They treat it as an atmosphere they have outgrown. They aren't waiting for a new leader. They aren't looking for a replacement. They are simply detaching from the old structure. And once detachment begins, collapse is no longer a possibility. It is a schedule. You don't witness this collapse directly. You don't participate in it. You don't even think about the Coven after that day. But your shadow lingers in their minds, as if you etched yourself into their internal architecture. To them, you are a reminder that truth doesn't need explanation to cause destruction. It only needs to be seen. Weeks pass, and the Coven becomes more ghost than circle. Members who once dedicated their lives to ritual now begin drifting into new roles, new identities. Some leave entirely, seeking meaning outside the confines of a hierarchy that failed them. Others stay but with empty eyes, moving through motions they no longer believe in. And the leader, he continues trying to resurrect what died the moment you opened that door. But you cannot resurrect a myth once exposed as performance. In private, the remaining members speak about you with caution. They say you carry an energy that disrupts illusions. They say your presence punctures atmospheres others depend on. They say you are unaware of your own influence, which makes you even more dangerous. And in their own way, they're right. You didn't intend to expose an elite occult leader during a closed-door ritual. You didn't aim to shatter a dominance play. You didn't plan to dismantle a hierarchy, but your lack of intention is what made the collapse irreversible. And that's the final truth the Coven must face. Your power is not strategic. It is intrinsic. It is not loud. It is precise. It is not disruptive by force. It is disruptive by nature. You are the kind of presence that reveals rather than attacks. And revealing is the one thing no dominance ritual can survive. The Coven won't look at you not because they fear punishment, but because they fear reflection. They fear what they became. They fear what they enabled. They fear the parts of themselves they discovered the moment the illusion fell. And they fear that if you looked at them again, you would see the remnants of a hierarchy that died under its own weight. Their leader, now a fragment of who he pretended to be, avoids mirrors for the same reason they avoid you. He cannot face the truth that his reign ended without a battle. It ended without defiance. It ended without ceremony. It ended the moment someone walked into a private room and saw him without his mask. And perhaps that is what makes your presence so powerful. Your ability to annihilate illusions without lifting a single intentional hand. You are the quiet force that rewrites atmospheres. The accidental mirror that reveals invisible fractures. The event that unfolds not through action, but through existence. You didn't mean to expose an elite occult leader during a closed-door ritual. You simply walked in. And the moment you did, the truth walked in with you. Their hierarchy didn't fall because you attacked it. It fell because it was never strong enough to withstand being seen. And now, they carry the weight of that realization in their silence, in their avoidance, in the way they look away when you enter the room, quietly acknowledging what they cannot speak. That the dominance they worshipped was shattered, that the Coven they belonged to has dissolved, and that you, without meaning to, became the force that ended their illusion forever.